Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coby's Brain. Great to have you tuning in. We got a big batch of reviews coming at you, so let's get started. We're going to get started with some movies. So, first movie we're going to be talking about is The Boss Baby Family Business, a 2021 film directed by Tom McGrath. So, The Boss Baby Family Business is a sequel to the original Boss Baby and is about estranged brothers Tim and Ted's attempt to stop an evil baby who runs a school from taking over the world. So I actually thought that the Boss Baby sequel was hilarious. I thought it was even funnier than the original. And I especially loved the terrifying baby clown who loved ponies and the pony itself. So. But yeah, it does go without saying that the storyline was completely absurd, probably to a fault. But nonetheless, it was a nice story. Very, very, very funny. Nice to see siblings coming together. And the message about modern kids wanting to be independent from their parents, since baby age, not having 100% good impacts is pretty interesting. It's an interesting movie, good message. I really liked it. Got a 5.9 on IMDb, 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. But on Coby's Brain, we're giving it a 7.9. Great review for this Boss Baby. Next up, we have The Tomorrow War, a 2021 film directed by Chris McKay on Amazon Prime, made by Skydance. And so in this movie, there is an alien invasion in the future. And as a result, the people of the future have to go to the past and recruit people in the past to fight the war that's going on. So that's a pretty crazy idea. It was a good movie, actually. So the aliens, known as the White Spikes, are epic, super badass, and terrifying. And Chris Pratt was a pretty cool hero, ready to take down some White Spikes. It did kind of fall apart in the end when Chris Pratt and his group must stop the invasion from happening by going back. You'll see how it happens, but that part is less exciting than the beginning, which is actually like some crazy action scenes going on. So it was pretty good, and I liked it mostly because of Chris Pratt and the epic White Spikes. It got a 6.6 on IMDb, 52% on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's Brain, we're giving it a 7.5. So, right on the threshold for an applause, but it's getting an applause. Great movie, I guess. Up next, we got Luca, the 2021 Pixar movie directed by Enrico Casarosa. So, Luca is a Pixar film about a young Italian sea monster who, along with his friend Alberto, defies his parents and explores the human town of Porto Rosso. It's pretty exciting film about, someone who is different. And the animation is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful animation of the Italian Riviera. And I think that's what it's called. I'm not totally sure. Just the Mediterranean in general, really pretty. There are some really funny moments, too, like Julia, one of the character, has this hilarious cat. If you watch the movie, keep an eye out for that cat. Very funny cat. And the local bully Urkele, he's kind of an asshole, but he's pretty cool. He's not cool. Do not be like Urkele, but he's very funny. The main challenge I didn't really like. So it was like this. They have to do this triathlon where instead of running, you eat pasta, which was kind of strange, and it was kind of hard to get invested in because it was just kind of, I didn't really, I like triathlons, but pasta eating, that's not really a part of them. But we'll let it slide, Pixar. So ultimately, I did kind of think it lacked the emotional depth of a typical Pixar movie, but I'm not. You can't. It's hard to compare. Any movie these days to some of those classics. Pixar. They're the goats. So, Luca got a 7.5 on IMDb, 91% Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's Brain, we're giving it a 7.9. It's a pretty good movie. Next up, we have the latest Marvel film, Black Widow, a 2021 film directed by Kate Shortland. So, Black Widow is about Natasha Romanoff's attempt to stop General Drykov's Black Widow program, where young Russian women have their minds controlled in order to execute his will. So, yeah, really cool film. The highlights, in my opinion, Scarlett Johansson's always great. Natasha Romanoff, rest in peace, absolute savage. The highlights, though, in my opinion, were Florence Pugh's character Yelena Belova, who's gonna be probably the next Black Widow of the Avengers, and is hilarious and super badass. And then also David Harbour's character Alexei Shostakov, who's like the Russian Captain America, who's also totally hilarious. So both these characters really had me laughing, and they stole the movie, in my opinion, and I hope to see them in future Marvel Cinematic Universe films. This movie wasn't my favorite kind of Marvel Cinematic Universe film. I'm more of like a Guardians of the Galaxy, though, as opposed to like the Captain America movies of the earlier phases. But this one was still pretty good, and I still like those movies. Those are still great, in my opinion. And, I'm obsessed with Marvel Studios, and this movie's just no exception. I think it really set up Florence Pugh to fill the large shoes of Scarlett Johansson in the upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe films that are going to be hopefully just as historic as the previous ones were. So, 6.9 on IMDb, 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's Brain, we're giving it an 8.1. We love Black Widow here on Coby's Brain. Next up, we have Space Jam: A New Legacy, a 2021 film directed by Malcolm D. Lee. So, in Space Jam: A New Legacy, for those of you who don't know, which would be hard to, they did a really good job advertising it, so I'd be surprised if you don't know about this movie. LeBron James and his son Dom, fictional son Dom, are transported into a virtual reality where, in order to escape, LeBron and the Looney Tunes must defeat an evil AI known as Algae Rhythm and his team known as the Goon Squad in basketball. So I did like parts of this movie. The combination of 3D, 2D animation, and live action, super impressive. I think this was a little polarizing because it was a major advertisement for HBO Max. But the fact that it referenced a lot of Warner Brothers properties, a lot of which are epic, Mad Max, Rick and Morty, DC, it was pretty amusing. I like those references. However, the film itself, very boring. The world made no sense, and the humor did not hit. Sorry about that, Warner Brothers. But I was not amused by this film. I did enjoy parts of it. It was cool to see LeBron in a movie, and very impressive mixture of mediums. But ultimately, 4.4 IMDb, 27% on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's Brain, 5.3. Not a great review, but they can't all be great. Next up, we have the original Space Jam from 1996, directed by Joe Pytka. So in the original Space Jam, Michael Jordan is recruited by the Looney Tunes in order to defeat the alien Nerd Lux in a game of basketball. So like Framing Roger Rabbit, the film was a breakthrough in combining live action and 2D animation. I also thought Michael Jordan was amazing. I think probably better than LeBron ultimately was. Love LeBron, but Michael Jordan I felt like he could have just been an actor, He was great, and the aliens were also really funny. The getting them to play basketball felt a little coerced, but still, whatever. It's Space Jam. It's a classic. It's really a classic. It's hilarious. The animation's great. 6.5 on IMDb, 44% on Rotten Tomatoes, but on Coby's Brain, largely because of how influential the film was and how original it was, we're giving it an 8 out of 10. It's a lot better rating than the newer Space Jam, which only got a 5.3, but it's often hard to compete with the original. Next up, we are going to be talking about the 1999 David Fincher film Fight Club, also a classic. So in Fight Club, a narrator played by Edward Norton has become disillusioned with the emptiness of American consumerism and starts a fight club with soap salesman Tyler Durden, which gradually devolves into like a revolutionary nihilism club. So Fight Club is really a classic with a lot of depth. I think it touches on the spiritual emptiness of consumer capitalism and is also super gripping and hilarious throughout, despite the arguably gratuitous violence, which was probably necessary for the film's effectiveness. But it's such a classic movie that perfectly encompasses, that existential midlife crisis that those of us raised in consumer capitalism face. It's interesting. I wonder if that was even a more influential idea for Generation X. I think a lot of time has passed since this movie came out. I don't necessarily know if the IKEA-obsessed individual perfectly embodies the typical person living in contemporary capitalist America, but still really interesting movie. Definitely worth the watch. It got an 8.8 on IMDb, 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's brain, it's a classic. We're giving it a 9.1. Give it up for Fight Club. That's a great movie. Next up, we have M. Night Shyamalan's 2021 film Old. So it's his latest movie. In Old, a group of people staying at a beach resort become trapped on a mysterious beach where aging takes place extremely rapidly. I saw it in AMC Prime, and I don't know if that's why, but I was like, damn, this movie is intense. It's suspenseful. I really liked it. I found it very engaging, despite the fact that the story was a little ridiculous at times, and the acting wasn't always great. But I really did enjoy it. I thought it was thrilling and was interesting to learn about, or interesting message about kind of like the fear of our mortality. And the classic M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end was actually pretty satisfying. Some of them aren't. This one was. It got a 6 out of 10 on IMDb, 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. So a lot of people didn't like it as much as me, but on Coby's brain, we're giving it a 7.8 out of 10. That's a great review. Shout out M. Night Shyamalan. Next up, speaking of M. Night Shyamalan, we are going to review the 1999 film of his, The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense is a movie in which Bruce Willis is a child psychologist who must help a child with a terrifying issue. He sees dead people. The film is really nice, really touching, in which a young medium is taught to accept the gift/curse. I think that's a great story in itself, but the twist at the end is really what makes the movie and made it, when I first saw it back in the day, just like one of these movies that I'm like, wow, like totally changed my, like, honestly life-changing twist. You're just like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe a movie can make you go like, wow, that's crazy. You know what I mean? You're just like, this is the craziest thing ever. I'm not going to give that twist away. If you give the twist away, you shouldn't do that, because for people experiencing The Sixth Sense for the first time, it's just like so exciting. Anyways, also Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment, great actors. I gotta say though, after rewatching it, you're kind of like, how did I not see the twist coming? It's kind of obvious, but whatever. I still loved it. I've always had a deep love for this movie, and I would say the twist is a major reason I love movies as much as I do. Got an 8.1 on IMDb, 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's brain, because of its how classic and influential it is inside of me, we're giving it a 9.3 out of 10. Give it up for The Sixth Sense and M. Night Shyamalan. You are a genius, in my opinion. Up next, we're going to be talking about The Green Knight, a 2021 film directed by David Lowery. So, in The Green Knight, King Arthur's nephew must accept his difficult fate of traveling far in order to have his head cut off by the notorious Green Knight. Um, film cinematography, beautiful. Dev Patel as an actor, he's the hero. He's incredible. The disquieting events of the film leave the audience pretty uneasy but enthralled. I saw this in theaters. It was crazy. So the strange surrealness is a bit confusing at times, and the fox was not especially. I didn't think he looked that good VFX wise, but whatever. Fox was important, but he was still cute. But ultimately, this film in which a hero must face death head on it's crazy. You're like, wow, what would I do if I was in that situation? That would be an insane situation to be in. The one that the hero of the Green Knight it's intense. 7.5 on IMDb, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's brain, really loved it. Giving it an 8.5. 8.5 out of 10. I think this movie could be an Oscar contender for this year. We'll see. Up next, we are going to be talking about the 2021 documentary directed by Amir Questlove Thompson, a.k.a. Questlove, Summer of Soul. So, the Summer of Soul is a documentary featuring restored footage of the 1969 Harlem Cultural Festival, a series of concerts in Harlem that came to be known as the Black Woodstock. So the film had some pretty amazing footage, I gotta say, of various performers, including Stevie Wonder. That part was probably my favorite, as well as a bunch of current interviews of festival attendees who were very thrilled to see the footage restored, which had previously sat in a basement for 50 years. It was pretty cool. I gotta say, though, I think I would have appreciated the movie a lot more if I'd been more familiar with this kind of like 60s era music, which unfortunately I wasn't, but I still appreciated it. It's still a really interesting documentary about a fascinating period of time, and good to see the festival is finally being appreciated more, considering the significance it clearly had for the majority Black attendees who, as interviewed, were like, this was crazy, this was an awesome experience. So movie got an 8.2 on IMDb, 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow, that's a great review. On Coby's brain, we're giving it a 7.6 out of 10. Very good documentary. Definitely recommend watching it. Next up, we are transitioning into television shows. We're starting out with Loki, created by Michael Waldron. Season 1 recently came out in 2021. So if you don't already know, Loki is the third Disney Plus television series of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It follows the specific Loki that escaped New York with an Infinity Stone in Avengers Endgame, as he and other Lokis attempt to destroy the corrupt Time Variance Authority. So the events of this show were super significant in the scope, or in being part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Also, the show, hilarious and entertaining. Loved Alligator Loki. He was probably my favorite. So, I don't know. The one thing, though, I got to say, I think considering the immense power of the TVA, I think their abilities were somewhat understated. Even though, they had all the Infinity Stones and were super legit, but I was like, this is like the most powerful force in the universe. That's crazy. It was so interesting. Like, this whole TVA concept, super interesting. It's going to be a really big time universe expander for the MCU. And I think it's setting up the stage to create some high stakes, giant battles that are going to hopefully one up Avengers Endgame. We'll see if it can be done. So I love the show. I love this show like I love most of the things that come out of Marvel. And got an 8.5 on IMDb, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. And on Coby's brain, we're giving it an 8.8. It's a great review. Excited to see more of Loki in this next phase of the MCU. Up next, we have the Netflix series I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, created by Zach Kanan and Tim Robinson. So season 2 came out in 2021. I watched the first season, which I absolutely loved. It had me laughing so hard. It's a absurd sketch comedy show on Netflix. A bunch of kind of like improv, like straight man, crazy man sketches. So unbelievably funny and absurd under the right circumstances. I think my favorite sketch in this one was Coffin Flop, this like show about people falling out of coffins. I love it, clearly. The humor works for me, but there are a lot of people who don't like the humor of this show for some reason. So that's kind of interesting. I am not one of those people. I think it's hilarious. 7.8 on IMDb, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow, so maybe more people like it. For some reason, a lot of people I talked to were like, no, that show just doesn't do it for me. It does it for me, though. Coby's Brain's giving it an 8.1 out of 10. Next up, we have Shtisel, created by Ori Elon and Yehonatan Indorsky. It's a show that's on Netflix. It's an Israeli show that's on Netflix. Season 1 came out in 2013. That's the season we're going to be talking about. And the show's about an ultra-Orthodox family living in Jerusalem. So the show's super emotionally poignant, one of the more I've seen in a long time, and really humanizes the ultra-Orthodox Jews, a group that, you don't see in the media too often. So I really like this show. Me and my mom were watching it. We could not stop watching it, and I felt like it could have gotten a little bit more out of the breakup between Akiva and Esty, but whatever, Besides that, really loved the show. Found it to be riveting. It's a show about a family at heart, and even though it's a specific demographic, the themes are, I think, universally applicable. So it got an 8.6 on IMDb, and on Coby's entertainment blog, we're giving it an 8.7 out of 10. Next up, we have Unorthodox, another Netflix show about Orthodox Jews. This one's created by Anna Winger and Alexa Karolinsky. So season 1 came out in 2020. It's based on a book, a true story, and it's a limited miniseries though. So there's only 4 episodes. So, anyways, it's a miniseries on Netflix about a young woman who abandons her ultra-Orthodox life in Williamsburg and goes to Berlin to try to become a musician. So Shira Haas was the star. I saw her in the previous show I reviewed, which was called Shtisel, and I was like, oh, she's really good. I should watch this. She was great. I'm really glad I saw this show. It was like such a unique premise and so compelling. Seeing this like juxtaposition between ultra-Orthodox life in Williamsburg and, Berlin, where people are not very ultra-Orthodox Jewish. Anyways, unlike Shtisel, the series was actually a lot harsher on the ultra-Orthodox. It portrays them as very oppressive. I think it maybe could have been a little bit more nuanced, but still really interesting perspective. The main character's voice also coming out of nowhere was a little ridiculous. Anyways, I really liked the show, though. Found it to be very engaging. Found its premise to be great and thought it was really well done. On Coby's Brain, it got 8 out of 10 IMDb, 96% Rotten Tomatoes, and on Coby's Brain, giving it an 8.5. Another great review. In the books. Up next, we have Coby's music reviews. We're going to be reviewing some recent music that's come out. So June 2021's album by Doja Cat, Planet Her, is the first album we're going to be talking about. Love this album. Doja Cat is the current heartthrob of my generation, in my opinion, at least for me. And her latest album proves that she's a talent who's really here to stay. Bangers on this album include I Don't Do Drugs, featuring Ariana Grande, You Right, featuring The Weeknd, and Kiss Me More, featuring SZA. And there's a lot of the songs on the album also are really good. But these bangers, I'm like, wow, these are just like classics. These these are songs that are gonna go down in history. Even though, a lot of the songs weren't. The fact that this album, I'm even reviewing this album, I'm so hip hop obsessed that a more kind of pop album doesn't usually even make it onto Coby's music reviews. But she can rap. Doja Cat can rap. She can really do it all. Like, she's totally incredible. We love her here on Coby's Brain. On Pitchfork, they gave the album a 7.8. On Coby's Brain, we're giving Doja Cat's new album an 8.3. Way to go, Doja Cat. Keep up the good work. Up next, we have the second posthumous album by Pop Smoke, Faith, which came out in June 2021. So I love Pop Smoke. Rest in peace. But it's kind of clear that this album might be like the posthumous album that was made with the I guess verses and hooks and samples that might not have made it onto Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, which was reviewed very, very highly here on Coby's Brain. That album was an absolute classic. Give it up for that album. But bangers on this album include Television, featuring Kanye West and Pusha T, Manslaughter, featuring Rick Ross and The Dream, About a Million, featuring 42 Doug and 21 Savage, Woo Baby, featuring Chris Brown, and Demeanor with Dua Lipa. A uncommon collaboration, but it worked for me. I love that song. A lot of people hate on this album because it might not have been authentic to Pop Smoke, who wouldn't have want an album like this to come out. But and people are accusing the record company who made it of being, of it being kind of like a cash grab for them. And that could be true, but it has bangers. There's bangers on the album. Like, that's undeniable. It got a 3.8 on Pitchfork because of that accusation. But on Coby's Brain, we're giving it a 7.5. So we still liked it here on Coby's Brain, but not as much as his previous album. Up next, we are transitioning into Coby's Thought Blog, where we discuss some important questions that are currently circulating through me. So the first question / topic / thought that we are going to be discussing is routine versus spontaneity. So this is another one of those questions I don't necessarily have an answer to, but nonetheless is exciting to explore. So when I talk about routine, I mean like coming up with a plan, like a set of habits or steps that you're planning in advance to accomplish an objective. And so I generally find, at least with my own thinking, that is preferable over spontaneity in terms of helping you to accomplish that objective. However, who knows what happens when you're open to the spontaneous, to the serendipity that could arise. Like, you might find that the objective you were pursuing with your plan wasn't even what you wanted in the first place. So who knows? It's a complicated question. Should one live a routine-centered life or try to be more spontaneous? I don't know. What do you think? You got to let me know, Coby's Brain viewers. But realistically and like philosophically, the answer, as is the case with these extremes, generally lies in the golden mean, or the mean between two extremes. This ain't my idea. This is some Plato, Aristotle, but realistically, some spontaneity and some routine is probably a good way to go. But I don't know. I've been liking the routine life lately, but who knows? Maybe the routine life is, prone to being stale. So let me know what you think. Do you prefer routine or spontaneity? The next thought that we are going to explore is one that I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's the ethics of white lies. So, in previous episodes, I've probably talked about lying and why based on my kind of favorite moral philosopher, Immanuel Kant, lying is not a good thing. But white lies get a little bit complicated because that's when you are telling a lie solely for the sake of not hurting someone's feelings. But, Kant, even with regards to white lies, still had a pretty concrete opinion on the matter, stating that, even if a lie is harmless, it is not on that account innocent. It is a serious violation of a duty to oneself. It subverts the dignity of humanity in our own person and attacks the roots of our thinking. So yeah, Kant did not like white lies. And that said, Kant is not at all concerned with consequences. And when you tell, that person that their haircut doesn't look good, that the consequence generally often is not that good. So, what are you supposed to do in a situation like that? Should we avoid Kant's idealism and just be nice? And I don't know, maybe the haircut isn't good, in which case, maybe they prefer to hear that it is, but maybe it's actually in their best interest to hear that it isn't a good haircut because, maybe they can go get it fixed, right? So even a white lie intended to be nice might actually not be what that person prefers. Personally, I would want to know, but I would want to know the truth in whatever case, so that I can, address it, even if it's unpleasant. But, not everyone would agree with that statement. Many people would prefer to just say the nice thing, but additionally, lying is a slippery slope. One white lie could turn into other lies. So I don't know. I personally do not think white lies are good at all. I think they're probably bad. But let me know what you think. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And that's all we got for you today on Coby's Brain. Thanks so much for watching. It's always great to have you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.